Hello and welcome back to my second update here on this 1930 Coupe build. As you can see, the car is basically a roller at this point. I've done a lot of work on the chassis and it's still not quite done, but we'll get into that. But yeah, it's starting to actually look like a car and not just a pile of parts. So I figure I'd give you a little update on what I've done. So first off, I've been struggling pretty bad with 3D printer issues this last week. It has been about a week since my last update. I think where I left that video I had mentioned that I would be interested in possibly designing some 1932 style wire wheels, and I did get around to that and thankfully was able to print one set in between amidst of about 8 or so failed prints. I'm still trying to troubleshoot it. You might be able to hear it in the background. It's been an ordeal. So here is the stock wheel, and as I turn it around you can see it does have, where's my focus point? There it is. This is just made to be in like an exact stock replica of a wheel that you can use for, like junkyard or something. But there's the spoke design. I am mirrored, so I can't figure out where I should put my hand. But yeah, that's the wheel design. This one was a fail to kind of figure out how easy it would be to get off the support, so you can see some of the spokes are broken, but that's what this was also for. But yeah, so I also have the wheels that were designed for the kit tires. I guess I'll just show you the front one. And so this actually would have hub detail in there. You can kind of see the hub poking through, and there are the lugs in there as well, but a lot of resin got caught in there even through the cleaning process, and so they did not turn out super great. But hopefully I can fix my printer. You can hear it running in the background. I'm trying another potential fix, but if that all works out, I should be able to print some proper wheels to use in the car. But anyways, on to the chassis. So we'll go ahead and just shake the wheels off. The front end is basically done. I scratch built some split wishbones out of styrene, did your drop bracket here, added some bolt detail on the bottom just to kind of make it look a little more realistic. The drop axle I used is from this person here, whose name I cannot recall, but I found it on Cults, so I'll add it in post. But that's a real nice drop axle. However, in the process of using the drop axle, I was struggling to figure out the steering linkage. Basically everything I tried was putting the steering linkage in the way of the shock. And so I did something that was a little sketch. I ended up bending a drop arm here that kind of gets it out of the way, but it would still very much interfere with the shock if you were to steer, but whatever, I guess. However, we might end up changing that because I remembered last night after I finished the steering is I had wanted to do some simple, or I guess traditional 3-to-1 headers that came out the side, and this, I think it's an F1 steering box from the Revell kit, is very much in the way if I were to do that. So either right now I would run downturn headers, or maybe a manifold into a like stock style manifold into some exhaust or something like that. Or I could potentially do a cowl steering setup. So if we throw the body on, I could do a cowl setup where the arm would come out right about here, drop down, and then linkage would connect from there, and that would get it potentially out of the way of the headers. Sorry about that. Would still probably be in the way though, unless I drop it down a lot. So now I'm going to try to decide what I've done a lot of. I love cowl steering on cars. I think it's such a cool look, but I've done it a lot, so I was kind of trying to avoid it on this build, but it might not be avoidable. So we'll see about that. And then, almost dropped it. If we move to the rear, pretty obvious that I did a nice Z on here. So kicked up the rear frame quite a bit in order to fit the axle up. The goal was in order to get the rear tire to fit nicely in the rear wheel well right along the fender line. And so by kicking the axle up, I was able to achieve that. It also has an offset transverse leaf spring mount. So we got the leaf here on the cross member, the axle is forward of it. It's right now just glued in, so I'm going to fabricate some kind of bracket to make it look a little more realistic, and then do the split bones going from the axle forward. So that, once I finish that, the chassis will be pretty much done. Then we can move on to perhaps some interior. I got to rebuild the floor pan, because I cut the floor off in order to clear the cross member. So that's what I'm going to be doing right now. So I'm going to get started on the rear suspension.